Warning, this content may be disturbing to some audiences. Subscribe. If you dare.
Assume nothing, follow up and check. Hey everybody, welcome to ANECDOSED. People ask Reddit. What can a person learn/know right now in 10 minutes that will be useful for the rest of their life?
Number 1.
What to do if someone is having a seizure. 1. Try and move nearby furniture if possible so the patient doesn't hurt themselves. 2. Let them get on with it. 3. Once the seizure is over, move them somewhere safe and comfortable, a bed if at all possible, and keep them warm. Anyone with epilepsy will have done this many times before, and an ambulance is not necessary. Save it for someone who needs it. If it is someone's first seizure or you are not sure, dial 999/112/911/whatever. If a seizure lasts more than 2 minutes, call the emergency services. If a person has more than one seizure without regaining consciousness, call the emergency services. Never put anything in their mouth, you run the danger of choking them, and never try to restrain them, you will get hurt. I have epilepsy and it scares the life out of me that if I have a seizure on the street people won't know what to do. Another LPT, if you are epileptic or diabetic etc., inform friends/co-workers/etc. and tell them what to do in an emergency. For some unknown reason, this is hardly ever taught in layman's first aid, don't know about those in the medical profession.
Number 2.
Commenter. The 80-20 rule or Pareto principle. Wiki gives a fairly dry version of it, but effectively you use it in life as do the 20% that gets you 80% of what you want. It's important to understand in all aspects of life because perfection is usually worthless. The effort to squeeze the last drops out is simply not worth the juice. You determine where the easy part of something is and do it. Eventually you do more, but focusing on getting that 20% is the first step to major progress. If the act of getting to the gym ends up in you successfully doing some form of exercise that you want to be doing, then focus on getting to the gym. That's the 20%. After you have the routine and space made in your life for getting to the gym, then the rest will follow. It's endlessly effective in helping you for the rest of your life with almost anything. Knowing a simple one-off trick is less important than learning a rule for understanding how to live happily. Person B. I used to work at a martial arts center and encountered this a bunch of times. Roughly 80% of our stress was from 20% of our members who complained constantly about prices and demanded discounts. After a while, I told my manager instead of focusing so much of our energy on trying to please the 20% who we could never make happy, we should focus on the rest of our members who are happy with our services. If the 20% decide to go elsewhere, it's not going to put us out of business and we'll be a lot less stressed.
Number 3.
Commenter. 2 rules. 1. Assume nothing. 2. Follow up and check. My father taught me these, and I've found that virtually every major F in my life can be traced back to ignoring one of them. Person B. As an architect, we need to know these things. Always check consultant drawings, always redline CDs over and over and have others check too. If we are on site and see something wrong, we write it immediately and check. Lawsuits happen all the time in the field for things as simple as wrong millwork. Avoiding disasters and claims are top priority for third-party injuries. Never assume the consultants or even coworkers did their due diligence even if they are known for perfection. It can save lives. Person C. Assumptions are okay towards simple rules and simple behaviors, but when it comes to assumptions towards complex human behaviors and complex events which go beyond basic human wiring and biology, things can go wrong. Basically, don't make assumptions towards things which are likely to have multiple results. For example, don't assume your spouse is trying to F you over unless there is enough evidence, sufficient follow-up. However, it is definitely okay to assume the egg will be overcooked if in the water for too long. Person D. Similarly, trust but verify. Don't trust in a single source so much that you never verify the information elsewhere, but don't mistrust sources so heavily that there's no possibility of being convinced the information is true. Person E. The email is a really good example. I hear all day at work but I emailed them and didn't hear back. So I did my part. Pick up the phone and ask them about it. It might not even technically be your responsibility in some cases, but when you report to your boss that you didn't get your work done because Jill didn't send you the numbers even though you emailed her about it, it still just sounds like a shitty ass excuse even if it's 100% true. Things don't happen just because they should. Accept that unfortunate truth and use it to your advantage or bitch about it and hope that complaining that life isn't fair and people have shitty parents enough times will be enough to change the world to conform to your personal beliefs.
Number 4.
This is why checklists, even for highly trained/experienced professionals, improve outcomes dramatically. Surgeons use checklists, airline pilots use checklists, nuclear engineers use checklists.
Number 5.
Commenter. If you have computer data that is very important and will probably be a huge hit in the box office because the goddamn series is finally over, then don't store it on one place. Keep at least one backup on a computer that will never see the light of the internet, so if by chance a massive ransomware attack comes by, you don't potentially lose millions of dollars and thousands of hours of work. Person B. Ransomware gets into your system, then encrypts anything it can get, and shows you a way to pay for the decryption key, which may or may not come afterwards. Person C. Easiest way involves manually copying the files into an external hard drive or uploading them to a cloud service, e.g. Google Drive. More complicated ways involve using certain software that automatically does those things for you. Person D. I work in a university library and we get a surprising amount of students who complain that their work, which was only saved in one place, has been corrupted and they've lost it all. It's normally because they're trying to open a MS Word document in WordPad or something similar and it doesn't open properly, but seriously? Save your work in multiple places if you do want to lose it. Person E. If your work life is fully on the computer, take the time to set up the off-site daily backup, as well as an off-site daily redundant backup. You never know when your first backup may get corrupted.
Number 6.
Commenter. How to recognize a stroke. It could save a life one day. Just remember FAST, face, ask them to smile. Is one side of their face drooping? Arms, ask them to lift both arms. Is one arm drifting downwards? Speech, ask them to repeat a simple phrase. Is their speech slurred? Time, if you see any of these signs, then get help immediately. A stroke happens when blood is cut off from part of the brain, and symptoms can appear even 24 hours in advance. It is fatal if unattended, so be aware. Person B. Someone above asked what should they do while they wait for an ambulance to get there. My best advice is helping them get to the ground, sitting up because you don't want if they lose consciousness to aspirate if they're having dysphagia. Time the onset, if it is an ischemic stroke. If they get to the hospital within 4 hours, there is a specific med, TPA they can give to dissolve the clot. Keep them calm and note any worsening and how rapidly the symptoms change and worsen. Also note time of loss of consciousness if there is any. It's important to know. It can be scary, but you'll be helping tremendously and help treatment move quicker. Person C. Time to treatment is tremendously important in good outcomes for stroke victims. I watched a woman go from minimal symptoms, vertigo/dizziness, to full stroke in 20 minutes. It was the scariest thing I've ever witnessed. We had to run her to the CT scan while she was crying "I can't talk," as she was losing control of her face/mouth. Time is critical. Person D. My coworker recently had a minor stroke. We noticed her memory lapsing quite suddenly, very obvious memory loss over a month's time, but otherwise, her speech and muscular movement seemed fine. Then she had a second, massive stroke, and is currently in ICU, where she's been for a week. If we knew about the first one, she would probably have not gotten to this point. I think this is typically a good way to determine if somebody is having a stroke, but my advice is that if you notice any sort of cognitive issues whatsoever, to please ask the person to see a doctor. We all kind of ignored it in our coworker because we thought it might be early onset dementia and that she would be embarrassed to have it pointed out. I wish we would have pointed it out and made her take a sick day to see a doctor.
Number 7.
Basic sewing skills. Running stitch, back stitch and whip stitch, and how to sew on a button. If you're really ambitious and have slightly longer than 10 minutes, how to put in a zipper and how to rehem something. Even if you only learn a few basics, you can fix most quick clothing issues. There's nothing worse than a button popping off of your only clean shirt when you're in a rush and have no way of fixing it. Also, LPT for once you've got your skills in place, keep a few needles threaded with a few inches of black and white thread, and any other color you wear often, so that when you find a small busted seam or a button is popped off, you don't have to try and thread a needle in a rush to fix it.
Number 8.
In any negotiation, make your point and shut up. This is true with a Craigslist sale, and it's true in a political discussion. I need $20 for the guitar, or I think X stance is correct because Y. When you keep talking to reinforce your position, you usually provide weaker points that are easier to refute, and effectively weaken your position.
Number 9.
Commenter. How to properly breathe. Normally we take shallow breaths into our chest. However, if we actually take just 10 minutes out of every day to focus on our breath and breathe down into our abdomen, we will actually begin to relax and feel so much nicer. Suddenly things like meditation become easier, You become more aware of the here and now. Emotions are much more available to deal with and process, among many physical benefits. All just building on the simple act of breathing properly. Person B. This works because the capillaries that exchange the O2 and CO2 in the blood are in the alveoli, on the surface of the lungs. If you only take a shallow breath, you aren't getting fresh air all the way down to the surface of the lungs. What your body is using for O2 is the stuff that doesn't get exhaled and just hangs out in your lungs. To get some good exchange going, take deep breaths. Person C. Hiker here. Breathing is key. On uphills I'm taking very fast, very deep breaths, the type that would cause hyperventilation if just sitting. But at maximum, the body needs all that oxygen. By deep breathing, blasting up hills gets easy. Breathe. Person D. A more detailed explanation of what this means. When breathing normally you use your diaphragm mostly and your rib muscles a little. This is enough to saturate your blood to 99% of capacity. If you are doing exercise you will use more muscles like your chest muscles and muscles in your neck to breathe. You shouldn't have to do that under normal circumstances since it uses a lot more energy. Breathing issues is not that widespread a problem though. And if you have inefficient lungs or similar you will have to do forced breathing under normal circumstances. Commenter. Doing these two things will immediately improve the quality of your life. 1. Don't take things personally. 2. Assume the best in people. Simple, yet so challenging. Person B. 100% agree. If you take a second to think about why someone might do something and don't just assume it's to piss you off, it makes life a lot easier. Person C. Most people we interact with on a day-to-day basis are not trying to undermine our lives and hurt or offend us. If you feel this is the case in your life, you may want to reflect on your own behavior towards others. But, that being said, sometimes we meet a person in life who is just a jerk. Can't let another person's behavior control your life. Person D. Some people just take advantage of others if they can. They'll take and put on a face and make you think they're decent people until you realize they're not. They are good at spotting friendly, giving people and target them for what they can mooch and screw them over and take what they can once you outlive your usefulness or stick up for yourself. Of course everyone is not like that. Most people try to be good people. But there are also a lot of people who think they're good people, but are truly selfish and totally unaware of how their actions affect others, or don't take the time to care. So many people are shitty, even if it's not intentional. Person E. Or it will also make you more understanding of others. We're all human, aside from insignificant genetic differences we're all basically the same. No one is purely evil. I would be willing to bet that actions with negative consequences are more often done by well-intentioned people than those with bad intentions. In these situations it helps to have compassion and try and understand and forgive. That way, when something you do with good intentions backfires, this happens to everyone at some point, hopefully the same understanding and forgiveness is given back to you. Make sure to share your personal story in the comments below and have the opportunity to be featured in a future video. Also, if you like these topics, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification button to continue seeing more content like this every day. See you next time.